What's happening, y'all? Welcome back to another build guide for 0.3. Today we're taking a look at a more fun approach to the Deadeye Ranger. We're going full cold damage, with our main ability being Ice Shot to shatter and one-shot everything while mapping, and the ability Snipe to literally one-shot all bosses at the highest level. I've prepared a variation with the Rhoa mount and one without it, so you can pick and choose which one you prefer running. I also consider this to be a very budget-friendly build, as there is nothing mandatory that you need that will cost a lot. And this specific build has a ton of variations that you can choose from, and we're going to cover every single one of them. Okay, so we're about to start with the abilities. As I mentioned before, Ice Shot is the main one. Now, before we go into every single support gem, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the channel if it actually helps you out, so you don't miss any other guides that I'm going to release. And if you have any questions, if I haven't answered any of the questions in this video, make sure that you join us over on Twitch at twitch.tv/scorpius_ent, or you can comment down below and I honestly reply to every single question. But do make sure that you watch the entire video, because I'm going to answer pretty much everything, and usually the questions that come over on the comments are from people that didn't actually watch the video. But anyway, let's begin. Ice Shot is our main ability. It's the one that you saw in the gameplay, and you have two different ways that you can approach this. The main support gems that I really like here, I'm going to replace this right here. The first three are going to be Elemental Armament rank 2 for the 25% elemental attack damage. Then we have Pinpoint Critical for the 60% more critical hit chance, because crit is very important in this build as well. And then we have Rapid Attacks rank 2, which actually increases our DPS quite significantly. So if I take it away, you're going to see I've got 117k, and then if I put it back in, it's 139. Now, next, I personally really like Deliberation, but this support gem is really good because it gives you 20% more damage. However, it decreases your movement speed penalty. That's why you don't want to use it if you're not using the Rhoa mount. And if you do use the Rhoa mount, then you will want to add Deliberation. So this entire variation is with the Rhoa mount. Okay, we're going to cover, if you're not going to use Rhoa mount, what you're going to be able to do. Lastly, we've got Nova Projectiles. Nova Projectiles is what's going to cause it to do the whole surrounding arrow thingy and kill everything within the maps. Unfortunately, Nova Projectiles is going to deal 40% less damage. So if I take it away, we're going all the way to 250,000 with Ice Shot and without a 5th gem. But with Nova, it goes to 139k. If for some reason you guys don't enjoy Nova Projectiles, which I really think that it's crucial for mapping, because this build is a little bit squishy, you have a lot of other ways to go about it. So a couple of support gems that you can go for are things like Ice Bite. For mapping, Ice Bite is going to be very big because you're always freezing your enemies, as you will see in the gameplay, which means you will always have that extra 25% extra cold damage. Unfortunately though, Ice Bite is not going to be ideal for bosses, so you will need to either swap it out for something better, or you're just going to deal less damage by the time you freeze the target, and then it doesn't really matter. Another support gem that's really good here in place of Nova Projectiles is Stoicism rank 2 whenever you're using the Rhoa mount. Why? Because this is going to stack every single second 2%, all the way up to 20% damage, which is equivalent to what Deliberation gives you. So you can also run both of them. So if I take away Nova Projectiles and I put Stoicism, you're going to see it's going to start building up this little buff right here, and our damage is going to keep on increasing. Just a note, by the way, the tooltip is not the best thing for you to look at your damage. The best thing would be POB. I'm going to include my POB as well, because the written guide will have some mistakes here and there because of a max roll not loading all of the jewels that I'm using and stuff like that. So anyway, Stoicism is a really good support gem if you're using Rhoa, because it gives you 20%, and the downgrade is if you dodge roll, for example, if you roll away, you're going to see that the buff is going to reset and it needs to build up once again. So with the Rhoa variation, Stoicism is a really good support gem. Another one that's really good is called Attunement. But this one depends on what kind of gear you have. If you have good rings, like this one, for example, that I have a ton of lightning damage and a ton of fire damage, it's really going to work out very well for me if I put cold attunement. Because if we open up Ice Shot, we're going to see that I'm dealing a lot of cold damage, which is the highest, obviously, at 34k. But I also have a lot of fire and I have a lot of lightning. So whenever I put cold attunement, it's going to convert those two, the lightning and the fire, into even more cold, which is really good. But again, it depends on your fire damage and your lightning damage. If you have things on your bow or your rings or stuff like that, then cold attunement is a really good support gem to consider, and you don't need to take it in and out whenever you're mapping or bossing. But again, I've tried all of these options, and my personal opinion is that Nova, even though it reduces your damage, is the best go-to for mapping, which means that unfortunately we're going to need to take that out for bossing and put something else to it. For example, Stoicism is not going to be one of the swaps here because we're not going to be dealing with the bosses on our mount, which means that Stoicism is not going to be consistent with the 20%, so that goes out of the picture. Ice Bite doesn't really work into bossing, so what I personally do is whenever I'm mapping, I'm using these 5, and whenever I'm bossing, I'm just taking away Nova projectiles and going for cold attunement. So this, by the way, is also a third variation for this build if you would like to go for the normal Ice Shot without the Nova. You can actually try this. It's really powerful. Your hits are going to be so much stronger. However, you're going to need to put more effort into aiming on every single pack that comes towards you, and if you get overwhelmed, well, you might be knocked back, and yeah, that's why I think Nova is really good here. But this is what you could do with Ice Shot on the Rhoa mount. Next, moving on, we've got Snipe, our second most important ability here, which is the boss killer itself. So with the Rhoa variation, what we're going for is window of opportunity 100% here. It really helps you out. It makes you, the perfect timing window is a little bit shorter, but it increases the damage. Really good stuff. Inevitable critical, so we can build up on that crit even more. As you can see, my crit on Snipe is at 95.5%. Then I have Minion Pact because it gives me 35% more damage since we're going with the Rhoa. Then we have Pinpoint Critical once again to give us that critical hit. And lastly, we've got one of the cheapest lineage support gems called Garokan's Resolve. You can literally purchase 7 for 1 Exalted. It's very, very cheap, but it actually gives us a decent bonus here for Snipe. What it does is that attack critical hit chance with the supported gem, which is Snipe, is going to give you this effect right here, which says that hits with this weapon roll against their critical hit chance twice when determining if they are a critical hit. And for anybody who doesn't know what Snipe does, by the way, it's a channeling spell, and you want to make sure that you time it perfectly. There is a window of where you need to release that spell so it can deal the most amount of damage, but also you only want to use Snipe after 2 things have been accomplished. Number 1 is freezing the boss. Number 2, using your barrage. And yes, we are using barrage. You're going to see it in just a second. Next, we've got Freezing Salvo. This ability, you can use it on mapping whenever you're fighting against bosses or rares or stuff like that, because mapping, you don't need to do the boss setup and the boss rotation. And we also use it for the bosses so we can freeze them quicker. So the support gems that help here are things like Concentrated Effect for 30% more area damage, Freeze, obviously, for the 50% more build-up, Cold Penetration, we've got Cold Attunement, and Hourglass. Next, we've got Escape Shot. Escape Shot is also something that we use on bosses only. When I say bosses, by the way, guys, I mean pinnacle bosses, Zesht, Arbiter, King of the Mist, stuff like that. And this has, as you can see, 840% more freeze buildup. The support gems here are obviously Freeze. We have Elemental Armament rank 2, Cold Attunement once again, Ice Bite, and then Magnified Area at rank 1. Barrage is super important because it's a 1-2 combo. You're not only using Snipe to one-shot the bosses, you're using Barrage into Snipe, and the tech that we use for Barrage is to pair it with Combat Frenzy. If you have Frenzy charges, it consumes them so we can add additional repeats, which means that our Snipe is going to hit multiple different times, which is exactly what one-shots the bosses. So for Barrage to work nicely, we need Efficiency rank 2 so it doesn't consume consume a lot of your mana. We have cooldown recovery, rank 2, heightened charges because it benefits from consuming charges for supported skills, have 20% chance to be doubled. Then we have perpetual charge, 25% chance to not remove charges but still count as consuming them. And last but not least, we've got rapid casting 2 because obviously we don't want to wait too long for us to be able to cast barrage and spam it if needed. Next, we've got Herald of Ice, which is our main damaging aura that we have for mapping, for bossing, doesn't matter. Herald of Ice needs overreach, it needs elemental armament rank 2, cold attunement, cold penetration, and elemental focus. Pretty good stuff. That's all you need. Combat Frenzy obviously needs to be on with charge profusion rank 2. And then we have 2 more. 1 defensive, which is Wind Dance, and with Wind Dance we need blind rank 2, pin rank 1, and maim. And last but not least, of course, we have the Rhoa mount, which by the way consumes 60 spirit, and I'm going to tell you exactly where you want to get that spirit from. So we need loyalty, then we have minion mastery that gives it +1, then we have elemental army for 30% more elemental resistance, and we go for Brutus Brain, which currently, if I check it right now, if we go over here and we check for Brutus, you're going to see that it's actually very, very cheap. You can get 1 for 10 exalted, and that's basically it. And what it does, minions cannot be damaged, and minions deal no damage. So all the benefits and everything that we put in here is for the Rhoa to get empowered, so then we can get the damage from the Rhoa ourselves because it does count as companion, and we're going to add a couple of nodes over on our passive tree, which is going to be slightly different if you're using the Rhoa or not using the Rhoa. But that's basically it when it comes down to the Rhoa. Now, what do you need to do if you don't want to run the Rhoa with the abilities? Actually, not that much. Let's say we don't want to run the Rhoa and it's gone. What you want to do instead, if you have the extra spirit, you want to go with Ghost Dance. And the support gem you want to put here is Compressed Duration, and that's basically it. You're going to keep Wind Dancer as it is, and you're going to add Ghost Dance, and now you're going to be a little bit tankier because we also have Energy Shield. Another change you're going to do is you're going to simply go to Snipe, and you're going to take away Minion Pact rank 2, and you're going to change that with Elemental Armament rank 2. And that's basically it. Nothing else should be changed here. The only tip that I can give you is that if you don't like Nova projectiles and you're going to go with a normal Ice Shot, it might be very, very slow if you're going for Deliberation. So what I would do is I would replace Deliberation for something else, for either Ice Bite or things like Nova projectiles if you want to try it, because it's going to be even tougher without the Rhoa and without Nova projectiles. But there are a lot of things that you can replace it, and Ice Bite is a really good option there. All the other changes when it comes down to Rhoa are going to be on the passive tree. You don't actually need to change anything on your gear, whether you're going Rhoa or no Rhoa, it doesn't matter. The rotation for mapping is very, very simple. You simply walk around either on your chicken or on foot, and you just spam Ice Shot. Whenever you get the charges and you have Barrage, you click on Barrage, and then you just spam Ice Shot again, and that's basically it. For bosses, things are a little bit more complex. What you want to do is you want to freeze them as soon as possible. And the way to do that is you definitely need to remove Nova projectiles whenever you're doing bosses like pinnacle bosses, and add something like Deliberation for bosses because we don't really care about the movement speed there. And you want to hit them with Ice Shot, you want to hit them with Freezing Salvo, and you want to hit them with as many escape shots as you possibly can, because escape shot, don't forget, it has 840% freeze buildup, and you're going to be able to see the percentage of freeze buildup under the boss's health, so you know exactly when they're going to be frozen. And whenever that happens and it goes to 100% and the boss is frozen, you want to stand still, you want to use your barrage, and you want to time your snipe. You want to hold onto snipe and let go whenever it shines. You want to practice this on your hideout if you want to, but you need to always hit a perfect snipe. If you hit a perfect snipe, most probably, bosses are gonna be one-shotted if you did everything right. If you didn't, then you're gonna lose a ton of damage on snipe. So we've got the helmet. As you can see here, I'm going for Energy Shield. We've got Chaos damage in here, one of my resistances, and critical hit chance as much as I can. Then we have the chest. I've got a hybrid with a lot of evasion, a lot of Energy Shield. We've got 2 different resistances here, and I got the Gain Deflect rating equal to 19% of evasion rating. Then I have the gloves. As you can see, it has cold damage, physical damage, some rarity, critical damage bonus, and the effect. Then for the rings, you're going to see I have physical flat damage, increased cold damage, and one more flat, which is the lightning, which once again is the reason why I really like cold attunement, because it will convert a chunk of that damage to cold damage. My second ring, I showed it before, lightning, fire, and physical. And very, very importantly here, you can either select to have the mana leeching on one of the two rings, or you can find it on the gloves, or you can find it on the bow. Then for the amulet, something which is very, very important is the +3 to levels of all projectiles. That's going to increase your damage significantly. Getting critical hit chance here, critical damage bonus is also, in my opinion, a must. Then the spirit, the global defense, and the evasion to the body armor is not actually a mandatory thing to go for. It actually depends if you care about the Rhoa or not, because as you can see, I removed the Rhoa and I do have ghost stance and I still have 16 spirit to spare. If you don't care about the two defensives and you want to trigger it, as you can see, I have 46 spirit extra that I don't actually need, which is the biggest chunk comes from the amulet right here, which gives me 36. For the anointment on the amulet, I do have a lot of options for you guys. Number one, which is the one that I went for, is going to be Overwhelming Strike, which gives us critical hit, critical damage bonus. Another option you can go for are things like Storm Charged. For example, Storm Charge gives you elemental damage if you've dealt critical hit recently and increases your critical hit chance by 20%. Something else which is really good is this one right here, Vulgar Methods. It gives you 35% increased critical hit chance. And one more, and we're going to cover that in just a second, is anointing something like Kite Runner so you don't actually have to path over here, which is probably what I'm going to do next so I can try it out. But we do need to make sure that we cover for the crit that we're going to lose from Overwhelming Strike, Vulgar, and stuff like that. Then we've got the belt, which is a simple ingenuity belt. We've got 30-30 on each one, and actually it's not that expensive to get 30-30. Just make sure that these two modifiers are going to be positive. Do not get increased charm charges used. You want to get increased charm charges gained, and you want to get reduced charm charges used. A lot of people make this mistake and they get the opposite, and then your charms don't actually work, so be careful. Also, you don't need 3 charm slots, because within the campaign you choose one of the two story rewards, which gives you +1 charm. So even though you have only 2, you can put 3, as you can see. Another good option is obviously if you have the divines, you can go for Headhunter. It's insanely good. But if you don't have the divines to even pick up an ingenuity or a Headhunter, you could just go with a normal rare belt. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It's going to provide you with less damage, obviously, because it doesn't copy your rings, but you can stack your resistances and your chaos through that until you can afford a good ingenuity belt as a first step. Last but not least, we've got the quiver and the bow. What I went for is this specific quiver, which is the visceral quiver that has the implicit critical hit chance for attacks. We have flat physical, damage with bow skills, projectile speed, +2 on all projectiles, and then crit hit, crit damage. And for the bow, the most important thing for me here is as much physical damage as possible and as much critical hit chance as possible, as well as levels of all projectile skills. And last but not least, we've got the passive tree and the Ascendancy, which is very, very important. In the Ascendancy, you're going to notice that I didn't actually go for Wind Ward, but it provides us with something very important, which is the Called Shots, which is the only ability that I did not cover for exactly that reason, so you can see where it comes from. And what it does, as you can see here, it applies a socketed mark skill to a nearby unmarked enemy every few seconds. Consuming socketed marks will cause them to be reapplied to unmarked enemies. And what's good is that we're going to actually add 2 marks. Number 1 is going to be Sniper's Mark. Then we have Freezing Mark, which makes the targets more susceptible to being frozen. Then for the actual support gems here, we're going to go for Charge Profusion rank 2. Then Mark for Death. And lastly, Elemental Armament rank 2. Now, when it comes down to the passive tree, my current setup is with the Rhoa, so I'm going to go over this one first, and then we're going to cover, if you don't want to play with Rhoa, what you should do. So the reason I went with the attributes, I'm just going to answer a couple of questions. I'm not going to go over every single node. You could do that on the written guide if you want, or check them out in game. But just to answer questions of why I chose what I chose, first of all, here I went for the attributes because we definitely need a lot of attributes with this build, and also this consumes less points rather than going going this straight line. Then we're going for double quiver right here, Falcon technique for the attack speed, and all the way up here we're getting the critical clusters, all of them, as many as we can possibly get. Then I did decide to path a kite runner instead of anointing this on my amulet because I wanted the extra crit from overwhelming strike. The interesting thing that we're doing here is going for this entire cluster right here. Now, max roll is going to have some issues. That's why it's very important for you guys to watch the videos, because max roll does not support, for some reason, my one of my unique jewels. So the one that I'm talking about is the From Nothing right here with the Walker of the Wilds. Walker of the Wilds is a node that you definitely want to pick up so you don't have any issues with mana, which is also the reason why we need mana leeching on your ring or gloves or bow, wherever you can find it. Walker of the Wilds is really, really good for mana sustainability. But that jewel allows us to add different nodes in around the Walker of the Wilds. So what we added are things like Stupefy, we're going for dizzying hits, we're also getting enhanced reflexes for extra evasion and deflection and all that good stuff. And lastly, we're getting heart stopping. So with this one jewel, we're actually getting so many good nodes, but not only that, we also paired it with a really good against the darkness diamond as well that gives me 4% damage as extra cold and 3% increased dexterity, and this one hits on notables. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which gives us 5 times 4% cold damage and 5 times 3% on dexterity, which is really good. But if you cannot afford against the darkness and you cannot afford, let's say, the From Nothing diamond, because this is what the expensive one is, then your pathing is very simple. You're not going to take these two. You're not going to take enhanced reflexes. You're simply going to make sure that you get these two, and that's it. Nothing else. You're good. You don't need any of these, and that's that. Now, for the Rhoa, the difference is that you're going to go all the way to this cluster. So you're going to use these 6, 7, 8 points, because what this is going to do is going to increase your damage significantly because you're going to have a companion next to you. And last but not least, we're going for easy going, which gives us 25% increased reservation efficiency on your companion. If I didn't have this, I wouldn't be able to sustain the build that I wanted with Wind Dancer and Rhoa. I had to kill both of them if I didn't have easy going and just go for Rhoa. So with this, you're going to be able to also have Wind Dancer instead of killing Ghost Dance and Wind Dancer at the same time. Now, if you don't want to go for Rhoa, you simply drop all of these points and go all the way down here and get yourself the jewel socket if you have a decent jewel socket that you can put in here. And when I say a decent jewel socket, something like this looks pretty good for this build. You're getting cold damage, you're getting maximum energy shield, so we can put some more defense into it, critical hit chance, critical damage bonus. Another one that could be good is something like this, which is very similar. Maximum energy shield, critical hit chance, elemental damage is not bad as well, and even recover 1% maximum life or 2% maximum life on kill, so you're not that squishy. Now, for the time loss that I showed you before here, if you don't have the funds to get the Against the Darkness, a good one and a budget version could be something like this that gives you cold damage, critical damage bonus, skill effect duration, and global defenses. If you're trying to find the global defenses, don't forget it's a desecrated mod, which might prove a little bit harder to find. But that's basically it when it comes down to the budget version, to the Rhoa version, non-Rhoa version. What you guys want to do, that's basically it. For right now, a lot of people are asking me what's your level. I'm currently at 91, what you're going to see here in game. On max roll, I'm going to add my next couple of steps so you guys can have more options in case you're higher level than I am. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, if it helped you, if you're going to play this build, if you're playing it, if you're having fun. Personally, I find this definitely more fun than the LA Ranger. Let me know if you agree with that. Again, if you have any questions, leave them down below or join us live over on twitch.tv/scorpius_ent. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, I'm going to see you guys on the next one. Peace.